Visionaries is proud to present its 22nd season on public television. Sometimes you read the paper and watch the news, and it seems like there's more bad news than good in the world. But you know what? It's just not true.
I at least can hold on to something, that there's something, maybe it's small, but there's something that I'm doing to make a difference.
It's just a feeling that you have. If you can help people, you have to. There's no alternative.
Every child has potential that we just can't know. And so, to my mind, that's what we're doing. We are saving potential for the future.
This is the rarest of stories. On the surface, it seems so simple, so obvious. Then there is a twist. Not startling, just a little change in perspective. Then it hits you, bam. This could change the world. Friends of the Children might seem like just another mentoring program, but then you meet its founder, Duncan Campbell, a retired successful businessman who was himself a neglected child of alcoholic parents. He says, "We meet a child in kindergarten and we stay with him until he graduates from high school, no matter what." It is only then that you discover that the simple idea that everyone needs a consistent, caring person in their life may be the answer to a dramatic reduction in poverty, crime, and addiction across America.
My
name is Roderick Jackson. My occupation, I'm a wildland fire tech. I work with the Forest Service. First came in contact with Friends of the Children when I was 7 years old. Steve Wick was my mentor.
This is where it all began. This is my old neighborhood. It's a neighborhood I grew up in, and it was an old abandoned girls' school, and we renovated it and made it a place for Friends of the Children.
It takes so much just to get through the day.
I met Duncan in 1993 here at King's School, my first principalship. He walked in, the secretary came and got me and said, "Duncan Campbell wants to see you." And then we had a very good conversation about what he wanted to do with Friends of Children.
You know, the core of the program is we take the most at-risk child and we pick them up at the end of kindergarten, beginning of the first grade.
There was not another program, and there's still not another program, that keeps a child and a mentoring program for 12 years.
And the power in it is it's real, it works, it changes the child's life.
I've been through a lot in my life. 2010, a cop killed my brother, and on the same day, my other brother died in the hospital. He had a heart murmur, and just like that, you know, they were gone, you know.
My name is Gary Clemens. I'm the Chief Program Officer for Friends of the Children National. We're picking kids that have extreme odds, kids that have the most risk factors. So they might live in the most challenging neighborhoods. They might have a school that is challenged, and their parents might need a little more support than the other parents.
Steve was there, he knew my brothers. He was shocked, we were all shocked, everyone was shocked. But, you know, just having an open ear, you know, someone I could talk to, someone I can just have an outlet, you know, like, "Hey, Steve, man, you know, I'm kind of torn apart right now." And he's like, "Hey, man, it'll be all right." You know, just giving me encouragement, stuff like that, you know.
You know, the difference between Friends and a traditional mentoring organization is most mentors voluntary stay on average a year. And if we want to change these children's lives, you have to do it over a long period of time.
Having someone that really impacted my life positively is like, I don't take that lightly, you know. We keep in touch even to this day, you know.
Some friends stay over 12 years, but the average friend stays 7 to 8 years, when an average social worker stays 2 years.
Knowing someone for what, 21 years? Yeah, you develop a relationship, like a brother bond.
Trust that hope deep inside, yeah. And let that be your guide.
I'm David Shapiro, and I'm the CEO of Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership. Duncan's passion, Duncan's drive, and Duncan's ability to lead with head and heart equally has a lot to do with his personal story of his own life and the way he grew up.
Well, originally it was my father and mother and I, and then unfortunately my father was in prison twice. My mother was probably one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet, but obviously, like my father, they were both alcoholics, and they lived in bars and taverns. But unlike my father, who just only worked from time to time, she showed up for work every day, and she was home, in the evening and made meals, and just a nice person, but with very little capacity to nurture and parent. This is the core of the neighborhood I grew up in. Right up the street here, half a block, are the two taverns my parents used to hang out in. They got kicked out of one, they go to the other. But when I was a child living here, I was basically like a lot of the children in Friends of the Children. I was neglected. I was left alone. It's a very lonely feeling. And then obviously when my father's in prison, I'm ashamed and embarrassed about that. When we came up with the name Friends, it really goes back to my own childhood. Because I didn't have much of a family support system, I was always over at my friend's house, and it was a friend's parents that actually nurtured me and took me. For example, first time I ever went fishing was with a friend's father.
And as he said, being raised in the car outside of bars and the places that he was raised, and the entrepreneur that he was in amassing wealth and being successful in the business world, I think his personal experience led him to then be insatiably curious intellectually about solutions.
When Duncan, when he sold his business, he wanted to come up with a model that worked. So we got Portland State researchers together, and he said, if I want to help the most vulnerable kids in my community, what do I have to do?
Research shows attaining at least high school graduation, avoiding the juvenile justice system, and avoiding teen parenting are the three factors that really break the generational cycle of poverty.
In the case of Friends goes to a school, observes young people, understands the risk in their life, and says, we're going to target the kids who have this accumulation of risk.
My name is Spencer Hill. I'm a professional mentor. We go into these kindergarten classrooms at these specific schools for 6 weeks, and we get to know every kid.
I'm the principal here at Lincoln Park Elementary, and it's located in Southeast Portland. Some of our students come from homes that have abuse happening, substance abuse, domestic violence. Most every child that's selected lives in poverty and has the effects of poverty.
What I always look for and what I always tell my team is to kind of look for the kid that's very soft-spoken, the kid that's just kind of in the corner, not really engaged at all, not really communicating with his peers or his teacher or anyone, sitting by himself in the lunchroom. That's the kid that I feel really will grow and utilize the organization to the fullest.
I was just a loner, I guess, the one in the back of the room by himself.
I think if you sat down with any one of the friends, you would see that, like, at the core of each of them is a really good person who wishes to do good in the world.
One of the most beautiful things about Friends is the friends themselves. I mean, for each of them, I think it's truly a calling.
And what better way to serve a community or serve people than to mentor a child and stay with them and stick with it.
And while we take a professional approach, their actual strength and real gift is the gift of relationship, of caring.
And really the power and most guiding principle of it, which goes all the way back to Greek mythology, is that there's nothing stronger or more powerful on this earth than the power of relationship.
Imagine what you could do if you just believe in you.
Carlos knocked on the door. My aunt said, "Hey, Patrick, your new mentor's here. His name is Carlos Baca."
The first time I met Patrick, I think he was going into first grade. It was like the summer of him going into the first grade. And he just looks up to me like this big smile on his face. And he goes, "Do you want to see how fast I could run?"
And then I just told him, "Hey, I'm really fast. You should watch how fast I run."
He took off, barefoot, and I almost feel like that's symbolic of our relationship. You know, it really was a neat one that took off and had a life of its own like that.
I often see over the course of a couple years the trajectory of the child kind of change. I think that when a student feels like they have somebody that they can depend on and that solid person in their life, they feel a lot more confident and secure. They look forward to the outings that they do with their friend.
When you connect with somebody, there's always the chance that it will change the direction of their lives.
And you can just see how the kids actually change. And when you look at them in kindergarten and how much they were struggling and how over the course of the years, they get a lot better.
We all have a rudder on our heart. And I've told this to Patrick, I'm investing in you. I'm hoping that your rudder will change the direction. Even if it's 1 degree, it can really make a big difference in the long run.
You know, we've grown the program now from 24 children to about almost 500 children right here in Portland. And because of that, we've built this brand new building. But the whole idea of the building is make sure it feels like a home. The children feel welcome.
My name is Jimmy Tyrrell, and I currently work at the Yamhill County Circuit Court as a clerk for the Honorable Cynthia Easterday. So about the age of 8 years old is when I became part of Friends of the Children, and it really opened up my eyes. My family's last name carried throughout Portland was known for their criminal mentality. We're known to be criminals, violent criminals and stuff, and that spread through generation to generation. Friends of the Children helped me see a world that I was shuttered from. My family only wanted me to see the kind of the darker side of the world and basically make me believe that there was nothing else for me. Like, this is it, you know, this is it for you, kid. You're not going anywhere.
You know, in the beginning, while it was all about having this loving, caring, nurturing relationship with children, coming from a business investment background, we were, you know, myself and the whole organization, we wanted real outcomes with real data.
The role of data in this is immeasurably important in terms of proving out the power of different forms of mentoring. So policymakers, philanthropy, individual donors, they want to solve some of the thorniest problems we have to solve, but the only way they're going to trust what we've got in terms of the power of mentoring when done right is if we have data to prove it.
You know, our average cost is $10,000 a year per child, but actually for every dollar put into the child, it returns and saves $7 out in the future. The core of that, if they're involved in the juvenile justice system and then later even incarcerated in a state detention facility, those costs, that is a major cost incurred. The cost of being an early parent and being involved in the welfare system if you're a single mother, you know, and unable to work. It's a combination of dropping out of school, and then by definition you're going to have a lower, if not unemployment, you're going to have a low income generation.
I broke the cycle of more than probably 298 descendants of mine of not being a teen parent, not being in prison by the time I was 18, not being a drug addict, not being an alcoholic, not being an abuser. I broke a lot of cycles. First, you know, college graduate in my family. And they gave me the tools and the resources and the opportunities. And not only that, they gave me love, you know. They gave me friendship. They opened up their arms to me when nobody else would. They kept their hands stretched out to me when nobody else would.
It's not a one-way street. And
it has to be reciprocated. And when they do, it's something you can't force, but when they do, it goes to another level. And that's what Patrick and I have got to experience together.
Yeah, I don't even know why I'm tearing up. But I guess it's just like those lessons that Carlos has taught me is just like always been, I guess, really instrumental in my life. And I tell people, I like to use this line a lot. I know there's a saying that it's always darkest before the dawn. And to me, Carlos is my son. So it might be dark, but whenever Carlos comes, it's like a new ability for me to see, to be able to realize my full potential again. And so.
If I had to judge whether Friends of the Children worked or not, A couple years ago, when the Powerball was like over 100 million, I told my husband, if we bought a ticket and we won, then I would want to donate all the money to Friends of the Children. So, yeah, I'd say it works.
What do you want from your life?
We all know Kung Fu?
Is it struggle or is it strife?
You know, Mike and Sharon are two of the founders of the Seattle chapter of Friends of the Children. They were champions who helped build the board and get the program off the ground.
I'd left Microsoft in early 2000 and had been blessed to make a bunch of money and felt a great responsibility to do something good with those funds. And a friend from college randomly contacted me and he said, hey, I'm working for this group down in Portland, Oregon called Friends of the Children, and it's great, and we could really use a chapter of Friends in the Seattle area. Are you interested? So I had a friend who was leaving Microsoft at the same time, Sharon, and I called her and said, what are you doing?
We just walked in the room and a group of friends were talking to some other people, and Mike and I were talking, and I was sort of half hearing a conversation with a mentor. I heard him say he'd been here 8 years, and I thought, gosh, that's a long time. And I turned to him and I said, 8 years, wow, that's so great. And he said, well, I'm gonna be here 12 because these are my boys and I'm gonna watch them graduate. And that was the moment for me when I said to Mike, these are the very kind of people that I wanna spend the next phase of my life with, people that are this dedicated and willing to go the distance.
My name is Stefan Hauser, and I'm a mentor. Been with Friends of the Children for 7.5 years. My father was incarcerated when I was 5, getting ready to start kindergarten.
My name is Nakeya Isabell. I grew up right here in Seattle. I was the first in my family to attend a 4-year college and get my bachelor's degree in advertising from Pepperdine University.
I mean, we hire people who are qualified with a college degree and a passion for working with kids. You know, we ask them to stay at least 3 years and they end up staying even longer. We have 5 who've been here 20 years.
When it comes to length of relationship, I would say there's 3 things that we know to be true. One is, whatever length of time you say an adult's gonna be in a relationship with a young person, especially a young person who has faced a lot of transience and abandonment, you better uphold that commitment.
Being able to be a consistent person for the youth that I serve, I feel like that's, for me, that makes it not like work. I mean, when I come to work, I don't feel like I'm working a lot of the time. I'm just sharing experiences.
What has also been found over time is longer, stronger, is what the researchers say. The longer the relationship goes on, the more it has impact, and we know that to be the case.
Oh my gosh, I don't think Dark Spider stands a chance.
We had the opportunity of knowing Bill Gates closely and working with him. And Bill had a core principle of always taking a long-term point of view. He never did run that company for quarterly results. He was willing to roll the dice on something that might take years to unfold.
And then third, this idea of proportional mentoring. So if we're gonna provide relationship for kids facing the most, we better come with a lot of other services. You know, you don't give someone aspirin for cancer.
You know, once they become a friend, we're really emphasize the importance of training, encouragement, and support for each of the friends.
There are definitely different resources that are being brought to our attention in terms of like how to deal with sex, how to deal with poverty, how to deal with the education system. They're not just throwing you out there, but they're providing you with resources.
Friends of the Children sits in this place, one, as one of the more intensive mentoring models that there is in terms of the length, in terms of the professionalization of the mentors. It also sits in one of the more innovative places when it comes to this idea of the mentoring being in proportion to the risk.
And so that's what makes us professional. We're just not like a brother, big sister, but we wear many roles: sister, mom, aunt, teacher, tutor.
So they're all in teams, and they meet once a week as a team, the friends, to talk about what's working for them or the child, what isn't working. Other friends could give them tips and advice.
Like anybody else in this room, I can't go out and talk to somebody who doesn't do this job because they don't understand. So I think the collaboration is the key part of this job.
I had mentors growing up. I had people in my life who made a very, very, very big impact on it. And I just wanted to pass that on to other kids.
Like for me, like it's more like a vocation. Like I feel like a lot of these kids are full of untapped potential and they don't see it in themselves. And I think they're just as gifted or talented as any other kid. but they don't have the same opportunities or resources. And so I think if you have somebody that believes in you long enough, you can start to believe in yourself.
We are result-driven, yet with a dose of compassion, because it's not all about the quantity, but the quality of work we do. And then we have like a ETO, a database system, where like this stuff is measured in terms of like academics, social and emotional, health, fitness, things like that. So it's not just intuitive things. Like these are things that I'm actually being graded on and being tracked on. And so that data piece is very important.
It didn't seem to be a huge reach to think that we might be able to start with a kindergartner. 12 years later, this boy or girl graduates from high school with top grades, going to college, not in jail, not pregnant. What a win that would be, not just for the child, but ultimately for society.
My name is Jayana Brown. I am currently a college student at Seattle Pacific University. My mom was a drug addict. My dad was an addict. I was in first grade when Miss Sue came in and like changed my world, because she was just such a sweet, sweet person.
I think that's what ties me to this work, is that I wanted to bring hope to you, to my family, that you don't have to be a statistic or succumb to your circumstances, that regardless of what you've gone through, no matter how hard it is, that you can rise above.
I was in a really dark spot. Like I was taking care of my brothers, and my younger brother was 4 and the youngest was a newborn baby. I was 5, 6 years old, supporting 2 kids because my parents were in a very dark spot in their lives. My brother ended up getting killed when he was 14 years old, and he died under a car. It was one of the most heartbreaking situations I've ever been in. He wasn't in Friends of the Children. I wish he was. I feel like if he was in this program, it would have changed his life. He wouldn't have had to feel the void that he felt. And Miss Sue coming in and just being that support system, being that extra push for me, was very crucial to my development. She was like that light at the end of the tunnel. And when things got hard at home, my dad he would do drugs in front of us, like we would see it. I would just sit and think, okay, I'm gonna see Miss Sue next week, and everything's gonna be all right because she's gonna help me overcome this obstacle.
There are tangible examples outside of entertainers, musicians, and athletes, but there's somebody who's just like you that is doing what you want to do and you have access to. And that's what I love about Friends of the Children, that we're real tangible examples of hope and not just saying it, right? So I can relate to drugs and gangs and peer pressure, all those different things. I can draw on my experience of, I can relate to you and we can walk through this together.
I think a thing that appealed to me at the very beginning when we got to meet Duncan, and the story's just so clear, is that this man told his own life story, and then he wondered how could he help kids on the other side of the tracks be able to have a life where you grow up to be an accountable adult. And he did research. And out of that research, the results were stunning, but they actually weren't that stunning. A child needs someone who holds them accountable, who teaches them basic life skills, who loves them, who's able to forgive them, but then pulls them back and holds them accountable again. So he'd figured out this super simple formula of inserting this person called a friend into a child's life for a certain number of hours a week, and the outcomes were simply tremendous. And the thinking was, my goodness, he's proven this in Portland, Oregon. I bet we could do this in Seattle if we just connected the dots.
Seattle is an excellent example of where we're going in the future. We have a chapter in Cornwall, England, and we have inquiries from Africa. We've got a potential funder who wants to talk, how do we take this international? But it just builds on itself, mainly because of its result in real changes in children, but also for the satisfaction that it gives people who've come around us and help us build it.
And the program is a good program. It's intrinsically good, it's objectively good, it's measurably good. And when you can get involved in your life in something that's good, what I've seen is that there's a halo effect. Not only do the kids benefit, but the donors benefit, the mentors benefit.
We have tangible results, measurable evidence, whether it's siblings, a parent saying, I'm going to get my GED, I'm going to get my college degree, parents, being better parents. So there's the beauty, is you're helping a child, but you're really helping a family, helping a society, helping generations.
I'm here because I feel like Friends of the Children brings youth hope And I think that's what we all need, but specifically if a child can get hope at a very young age, I feel like it will be a domino effect into their adulthood and into their peers and their family.
I would say that it's helped me to become a better parent, because when there's things happening in my life and I need that extra support, I can call as a mentor, or I can come down to the office and just talk if I just need to talk.
Whether it's here, whether it's in Seattle or Portland in our inner cities, or in India or in Africa or wherever it might be, if we can find ways of unlocking and allowing people to become who they are capable of becoming, we've done perhaps some really great things in our lives, and that touches not just your mind, but it touches your soul, and it creates a nice integrated way of approaching life, and in my case, my purpose in life.
Take photos of things, and then your comment striking the earth. Your voice inside, set your spirit free, and just be.
The most important thing about Friends is that it's real. It works. We genuinely change children's lives. I mean, we're at the core of the future. I mean, in time, our whole community will care about these children the way we do.
One child at a time. Friends of the Children is proving that the cycle of generational poverty can be broken.
What you could do if you just believe in you.
Cambia Health Foundation is the corporate foundation of Cambia Health Solutions. We really work to make the healthcare system more person-focused and economically sustainable, and we do that through strategic philanthropy. We look for organizations in the community that are doing exceptional work and that are making our communities healthier. Friends of the Children does that by investing in the health and well-being of our most vulnerable children. And we invested in Friends of the Children because they help to build resiliency skills in children. The bottom line benefit of Friends of the Children is that it works. It really helps children to see that a different path for themselves is possible. It's an investment in them and an investment in their future. And we think that's a win for the community.
For The Visionaries, I am Sam Waterson.
Visionaries is brought to you through the generosity of Honda, Cambia Health Foundation, Eustace Kwan Family Foundation, First Nonprofit Foundation, Massimo, CGIAR, Friends of the League Foundation, Newman's Own Foundation, Group M, Inner Workings, Gustafson Family Trust, Dr. and Mrs. Dennis Gustafson, with additional support by Grand Island Chamber of Commerce, the Bill and Mary Hall Fund, Hall County Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Nebraska Tourism Commission, Citizens Commercial Banking, the Herman Family Foundation, Andy Goodman, Deborah Pate and John Forrest, Diane Deshawn, Friends of Becoming Independent, the State of Norman Chalmers, African Development Bank, the Ernest L. and Ruth W. Finley Foundation, Paul and Deborah Cleveland, Piari and Richard Moser, MD, Nigerian Government, Cornerstone Legacy Foundation, and Louise and Hank Leander. And from the phone.